police presence ramping up as protesters keep it up after the Zimmerman verdict, and now businesses finding themselves the target. Welcome, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling in for Neil Cavuto, and this is Your World. Banks, restaurants, shops, all under attack, and now amid the bashing, the boycotts, groups targeting the Sunshine State where the decision came down, calling for a boycott of everything from Disney to Florida oranges. Added up, and it looks like a tsunami of anti-capitalism from coast to coast. To Horace Cooper, co-chair of the Project 21 in Los Angeles, and Mike Huckabee in Florida. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. These guys say the protests are off the mark. Let me start with you, Mr. Cooper. I read a blog from you today. You said this is all wrong. Protesters fine, but boycotts,
Absolutely, it's inappropriate to blame the state of Florida if you're disappointed with the outcome. I'm not clear on how effective such a claim or an attempt is going to be in the first place, but it's misplaced anger. The resources and time and energy about youths being killed in America could be far more constructively addressed to issues like the shootings that are occurring in cities like Chicago and Detroit and Milwaukee all over the country. 8,000 a year happening, and I'm not seeing much attention focused on it. For someone to try to claim that Florida is the problem is completely misrepresenting the reality, or they're distorting the reality.
Hey, Governor, in fact, the defense used the self-defense defense in the trial. They didn't use a Florida stand your ground law. Where's this anger coming from?
Well, I think they're just frustrated, but it's ridiculously wrong on two counts. One is, as you just mentioned, stand your ground was not a factor in this trial. They never brought it up. They could have, they didn't. They went for the self-defense. And secondly, why are you going to blame the state of Florida? It was the state of Florida that prosecuted George Zimmerman, for heaven's sakes. If anything, the people who are mad at George Zimmerman ought to be happy that the governor appointed a special prosecutor to prosecute George Zimmerman when local authorities couldn't find enough evidence to go to trial, as, by the way, neither could the FBI.
Right. Mr. Cooper, this looks a lot like the Occupy Wall Street protesters that turned violent 2 summers ago. They're breaking windows. In fact, Oakland, California, one of the epicenters of the Occupy movement, that's where they're doing it again.
Well, it does appear to me that some of these people are just interested in mayhem for mayhem's sake. No one has ignored or forgotten that a young man's life was lost. But the disproportionality here is what the point here is. You know who's going to suffer when these businesses are burned or attacked or destroyed? If those businesses aren't able to recover, they're going to leave the community, and it's those members, those people who live in those communities that are going to suffer. It is not going to affect the governor of Florida. It's not going to affect the Zimmerman family. It's not going to do anything about the whole issue that they claim. But again, I would argue that we need to have the police be vigilant, be hyper alert to the consequences of this, because the citizens and the people who live in that community are going to be the ones who suffer the most from all of this.
Governor, let's talk about that for a second. Governor Scott in Florida was the one who, after the police said, the investigator says, we don't really have a case. The prosecutor assigned originally to the case, we don't have enough evidence to get a guilty verdict on this. They said no. Governor Scott said, let's bring in special prosecutors that are willing to do it. So sounds like to me the government in Florida did everything in their possible power to do what these people are protesting and boycotting.
Well, I think he went on the other side of caution to try to make sure that there was never going to be an allegation like there currently is. And now you have Stevie Wonder saying he's never going to come to Florida again. He won't go to any state where there's a stand your ground law, which again is absurd because that wasn't even a factor in this case. I think Stevie Wonder's going to be fine with or without Florida, but frankly, I think Florida will be fine with or without Stevie Wonder. But the problem is when you see these national boycotts trying to get people to not bring conventions to Florida, don't buy Florida products. That is really absurd because I don't understand the connection between the entire state of Florida and people who operate businesses and somebody who's upset because 6 jurors taking a look at evidence, applying it to the law, decided that the man wasn't guilty of what he was charged for. That's not something you can blame millions of people in the state of Florida for.
Mr. Cooper, look in the camera and talk to these boycotters, to these protesters. What's your message?
Well, First thing is, there's absolutely no justification for the mayhem and the crime. Again, it hurts the very people who live in the communities where these crimes are taking place. The second point is that people need to understand, and the media in particular, that the individuals that are engaging in these kinds of behaviors are actually part of the problem. They're the predators that 7 days a week, when there is no Trayvon Martin protest, that are going around harming the community. These individuals need to have the police come in, interdict them, and prevent them from going forward.
Right,
and finally, again, it punishes the whole state of Florida for what I believe we ought to understand is a constitutional privilege that other countries don't have, that you actually do have a jury process. Now, I appreciate it that the president said that we're going to recognize and accept the outcome of this particular of this particular jury. But if these boycotts go forward, they're saying no, we don't accept that premise.
Right. We're going to leave it there. Horace Cooper, thank you very much. Governor Huckabee, always great to see you.
Thank you.